Hello guys, welcome to our lesson. Today we'll be learning about the coral reef. Alright, the coral reef is one of the major marine habitats. Around 25% of the known marine species live in the coral reef. You might be wondering, what is a coral reef? At first glance, you may think that the coral reefs are made up of rocks, but they are actually living organisms. These organisms are tiny little animals called polyps. Now, polyps live on the outside of the reef. As polyps die, they become hard and new polyps grow on top of them, causing the reef to grow. Wow, I didn't know that. Did you know that? That is so awesome. So, does coral reef eat? Now, since polyps need to eat to stay alive, you can think of the coral reef as eating too. They eat small animals called planktons as well as algae. The algae gets their food from the sun by using photosynthesis. This is why coral reefs form close to the surface of the water and in clear water where the sun can feed the algae. Alright, so where are coral reefs located? Corals need warm, shallow water to form. They form close to the equator, near coastlines, and around islands throughout the world. A significant portion of the world's coral reefs are located in Southeast Asia, near Australia. The largest coral reef is the Great Barrier Reef, located off of Queensland, Australia, and it's around this part. Follow my pointer around here. It's around this part. Here is where Australia is. All right. The Great Barrier Reef stretches for 2,600 miles. That's a very big one. I think this one. Do you see this? Now this is a map showing us where the coral reefs are in the world. They are colored in red. So I think the one we're talking about is this one. All right, let's move along. Now, types of coral reefs. There are three main types of coral reefs. We got the fringe reef, the barrier reef, and the atoll. Let's find out about the fringe reef. Now, the fringe reef grow close to the shoreline. It can be attached to the shore, or there may be a narrow strip of water called a lagoon or channel between the land and the coral reef. All right, now next is the barrier reef. The barrier reefs grow farther from the shoreline, sometimes several miles from the shore. And our last type of reef is the atoll. An atoll is a ring of corals surrounding a lagoon of water. It starts out as a fringe reef around a volcanic island. As soon as the coral grows up, the island sinks into the ocean and just the ring of coral is left. Some atolls are so big that people live on them. An example of this is Maldives. Maldives is more like an island now after the sinking has happened. Now let's find out about the zones of the coral. This one got me so intrigued. I didn't know much about this, but here I get to learn. I hope you do too. All right, zones of the coral. After a period of time, coral reefs develop zones. Each zone is inhabited by different kinds of corals, fish, and ocean life. So they have different sectors. All right, we have the shore or the inner reef zone. This area is between the crest and the shoreline. Depending on the shape of the reef, this area can be full of life, including fishes, sea cucumbers, starfish, and anemones. Crest reef zone, that is the second zone. That is the crest reef zone. This is highest point of the reef and where the waves break over the reef. So when you go to the beach, you'll notice there's some part where the water hits really hard at a very far point from where you're standing at the beach. You see somewhere water hitting. I think that is the crest reef. When you go to the beach, I'm sure you'll notice that where the waves break over the reef. All right, the next one is fore or outer reef zone. As the reef wall falls off, the waters get calmer, around 30 feet deep. You will generally find the most populated part of the reef along with lots of different types of coral species. Now here is an example of the coral zones that are divided into the three zones that we have just talked about. Here's a picture. Have a look. Let's see what we can learn from that. All right. Now, let's find out about the animals that live in the coral. All right, coral reef animals. All sorts of animals live around the coral reef. This includes many different types of corals, such as star coral, brain coral, column coral, cactus coral, and finger coral. Ooh, so many different kinds of corals there. Now, some of the most strange and interesting creatures in the world live here. Many animals attach themselves to the reef, covering nearly every square inch. They include sponges, starfish, anemones, cucumbers, snails, and clams. Also, there are lots of fish swimming around, such as cuttlefish, sharks, lionfish, pufferfish, clownfish, and eels. There are 1,500 species of fish and 400 species of coral that live on the Great Barrier Reef alone. So that's a lot. All right, then we get to the coral reef plants. So the plants that we find on the coral reef. The majority of the plants living on the coral reef are various species of seagrass, seaweed, and algae. Remember, they make their food using photosynthesis. They make their food using the sun, with the help of the sun through photosynthesis. So what do you think? Are these plants, which color are these plants for them to use photosynthesis? They must be green, right? For them to use photosynthesis to make the food. All right. Why are the coral reefs important? That's a question I would like to ask you guys, but let me just read the answer for you. Besides being beautiful, a tourist attraction, and an important part of the earth, coral reefs have a positive impact on many people throughout the world. This includes food from fishing, protection of the coastal lines from erosion, and even medical discoveries such as medicines for cancer. So that means coral reefs are very important and should be taken care of. Now, are they in danger? Yes. The coral reefs are slowly being destroyed. Since they grow at such a slow rate, they are disintegrating faster than they can be repaired. Much of the damage is caused by humans, primarily from pollution and overfishing. Even tourists can damage the reefs by standing on them, touching them, or bumping into them with their boats. So we have to take care of the coral reefs because they are disintegrating. That means they're diminishing, or they're becoming less and less. So we have to take care of them. Now, fact about the coral reef. Now, coral reefs grow very slowly. Large reefs grow at the rate of 1 to 2 centimeters per year. It, it's estimated that some of the largest reefs took as long as 30 million years to form. That's a very long time, almost at the age of a dinosaur. And remember, they are extinct, right? Now, some animals in the coral reef have symbiotic relationships. This means they help each other to survive. The clownfish and the anemone are one example of this. Different types of coral grow into different shapes. Some look like mushrooms, some trees, fans, honeycombs, flowers, and even brains. Ooh, that's interesting. The Great Barrier Reef is so big it can be seen from outer space. Some coral reefs have turned white because they lose their algae when the water gets too salty or warm. Wow, that was a very lovely lesson about the coral reef. Well, I learned this when I went on my boat ride, but sorry I couldn't take any pictures because it was too stormy and cloudy. So this is all I learned from our boat trip, from my boat trip. Um, and I hope you learned something too. I hope you enjoyed. Please draw a picture of a coral reef and send it through. Bye.